Call this regular meeting of the Area Planning Commission to order. Please rise for the pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, I don't seem to have a secretary yet, so,
Either one of them.
yeah.
That's why I said my wife dies at damn now she's
There he is, he's got him.
My apologies.
It's all right.
Well, see what it was, Bob hadn't seen you in a while, so I needed.
Bill, do you have a roll call sheet by some chance?
Thanks, sir.
No, I do not have an extra one, but
There's Beth.
There's Bev.
We'll wait on her to get settled in.
you missed the national anthem. You are doing that, aren't you?
Be nice.
Bev.
Yeah.
Trying to get it ready
Four. This was from last month.
It doesn't
Usually
roll
try
too.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't
That
have.
means I'll probably have a wreck and
Yeah.
fall out of it, and you guys will have to
Bill,
help
this
me
is
out.
last
We'll help
month.
you out.
Okay, after you laugh at me.
There's a minutes from last month.
Yeah, I've got those already.
No, ma'am.
We're ready for a roll call when you.
Get my little
All right.
ink pen out here. Isn't it organized?
Hey, Ben, Jeff.
Okay,
We're on.
Tim Sparks,
I'm here, thank you, present.
Darren Price,
Present.
Bill Free,
Present.
Dale Munson, Gary Naylor,
Present.
Robert Stewart,
Here.
Brian Robb,
Present.
Bill Mackey, Daryl Drew,
Present.
Bill McDaniel,
Present.
Jeff Westling,
Present.
and Beverly Rude, late but here.
We do have enough for a quorum, so we'll move on. We have a set of minutes in front of you for the June 27th meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve as presented.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion made.
Oh, could you hold on one moment, though? I do have a question. Okay, what's that BVCC one? Bev?
Where you at?
Okay, up on the top, it just looks like I had
It's under
some,
the roll call number 2.
yeah, number 2 at the end of it.
Assuming this was,
Yeah, it looks like some other things have popped up.
Oh,
too.
I don't know. My computer was doing weird things last night.
Okay, all right,
So that's just junk.
all right. So if you just go ahead and then, and
Sorry.
also that plus after June 27th also.
I seen that.
Yeah. Okay, just go ahead and mark those out then, okay.
Sorry.
No. Computers happen, things
it-
happen.
I don't know what.
Okay, with those modified motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded with those modifications made to these minutes. Is there any discussion or questions further? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. No public hearings tonight. Solar committee meeting, the steering committee, we only had a few people show up the other night, so we decided to hold off on doing anything. So we haven't really done anything for this month, so we'll be meeting next month. They still feel that they can be ready for an October presentation
Yeah.
to the board, so, with a complete proposal. So I look forward to that.
As I mentioned last time, just one query for them to request is that before they get to that point, as soon as possible beforehand, get me a copy of it.
Well, sure.
Yeah, and with Yeah, so I can get those to the plan commission members to start reviewing beforehand, and also city council and then county commissioners.
May I ask a question? What's that committee doing, to approve or disapprove it, or are they trying to just set the rules down for solar panels?
They're gathering what should be a voice of the community, and then they're going to make a recommendation to this board. They cannot approve or they can't
Okay.
do anything. They're
Well,
making
we've
a
got solar
recommendation.
panels in Wayne and Randolph counties. Can't we get something from them, seeing what theirs are?
This committee has looked at several counties. I can say that.
Yeah, like, but this has been a fine tooth comb operation, since we set the moratorium in place. And then, not last month, but May, we made a lot of progress on finalization. I think August, we can get through the rest of it. And then we'll be ready to get it to Bill.
Okay. And the way it'll work then, Bob, is then whatever with that presentation, with those documents, is the plan commission, just like anything else, is you can amend these things. And so I would recommend before we have a public hearing is the plan commission members be really familiar with it and amend as necessary that document. Because you don't have to accept what is presented, just like you don't have to accept when I present something. So then can have it ready, then when it comes time for the public hearing, and then that's what then goes to, after the public hearing, to the county commissioners and the county council.
Well, I
I mean,
understand
the
there's
city
a
council.
lot of
No,
misinformation
city
out there.
That's what I
People
meant,
aren't
city.
understanding. I've had a phone call from individuals very upset about the whole thing. I've said, they're looking at 400 acres. Is that all? I said, that's all. And it has to be approved by Rush County before we do anything. So they were fine with it after they understood it.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on down the agenda, the parking regulations, Bill sent that out to us to read over.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to do the things I wanted to text-wise with us.
Okay.
So it's still the same one.
So where do we want to go with that? You want to open up for discussion, questions
Yeah, well,
for Bill?
yeah, I think that maybe one way initially is that if you identify the sections board members don't have any issues or problems with what's in there, what's being proposed, is that take care of those things first, so you can focus on the primary issues, which seem to be if I recall, the big ones with Dale, there's things like the work vehicles, the RVs, then of course is one with Dale Strong was also the unoperational vehicles, the number of vehicles then the locations of parking the vehicles on your properties, and so as I've been since then, as I've been seeing things through a little different prism as I've been going around town, keeping in mind some of Commissioner Strong's concerns and criticisms. But
Bill, have you ever seen a required parking space in a garage or carport?
okay, well, what that is if it's going to be there, it's all that is that if you have them off street, there's required parking. That's your required parking.
Well, I've got a 2-car garage, and no car's been in it for 40 years.
Well, you can still park them on the driveway.
That's what I'm doing.
Okay, that's fine, then there's no problem.
But I think if I read this and what Bob was talking about, if I understood what I read, if you have a driveway that holds 2 cars
It's your
and a
officer's car.
garage that holds 2 cars,
Or a lot of junk.
and you can't, and the only driveway parking is right and directly in front of
Yeah.
the garage, that's not 4 parking spots.
Yeah, it's still.
It's only 2.
Yeah, because it still fits in with the idea of you just need, see if it's 2 required parking spaces, that's your 2 required parking spaces. Whether you're parking on the driveway or whether you're parking in the garage,
It's still just 2.
it's still just 2.
You can't count it as 4
No, because.
from this.
Yeah, because.
language, if I understood
Yeah,
that
because
right.
all this is just a minimum.
Yeah.
You can have more,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any residents requiring 4 parking.
No,
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 no.
no.
You just couldn't use,
Yeah,
you can't use the space in front of the garage and in the garage. You can't double that space, if
Well,
I understood this
yeah,
language.
well, that's
Yeah,
what,
but what I'm saying is, where is it gonna be required that? Like,
because,
it's always
I couldn't
satisfactory.
understand why it was even
Right.
talking about that.
yeah, it's the, yeah,
And I guess that's
That's
getting
your
to
point
my
is-
question.
yeah, so the,
Why is that language even in there?
okay,
That was my point.
yeah, where's that located?
Oh, you had to ask, didn't you?
Well, I mean, I think Bill can just take notes and say, take out anything that says anything about residential parking or minimum requirements, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, I think that's probably new development is what the purpose of that is. New development, you wouldn't want somebody building a house where they don't have a driveway at all, where there's not ample, it's like on a street where there's not proper road parking.
All on-road parking.
So I think that's probably the intention behind that, is
Okay.
for new development, not,
Okay, well, maybe that's,
and I mean, because it does make sense, you wouldn't want somebody building houses where there's not, honestly, would you really want a house being built now in 2024 where there's not a
yeah,
driveway?
yeah, and, yeah.
if there's a garage, yes, I agree.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even if there's not a garage,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, anywhere, is there anywhere in the county that you'd want somebody to build a house where there's not a driveway?
Especially in the county.
So,
It's on page 5, 2A there, about promote a minimum of 2 off-street spaces, either paved or a crushed stone are required for each dwelling unit.
I mean, so I think to me,
Because my question was associated with tiny homes, is there gonna be enough, you know, as
Right.
part of that consideration, is there gonna be enough room for two parking spaces off-street for that time as well?
Yeah, because they depend upon also really what your lot size is or
Yep.
something like that.
Exactly.
so do you want to change that to 1 off-street, or do you want to change it to none, or?
Yeah,
That's under the current, under 2A, there are a minimum of 2 off-street spaces now.
yeah.
So what the proposed
Yeah.
amendment, I'm not following what it changes.
Yeah.
Mostly it's just changing the language a little bit more. Okay, and it really had to do with my question is with.
Do you want to change that from 2 to 1 or none? Is really what you're
Well, I
saying.
would just think leave it at 2. But the question I had with is the practicality of it with older lots. Because I was thinking about that, because of course with the amendment that was passed having to do with the minimum lot size. So allowing those people then to use on-street parking.
That's what I'm asking
Yeah.
for you. So you're proposing the board either look at keeping it 2 or making it 1 or none.
Yeah, and it's fine, yeah, it's fine, and, or putting in place some type of exception for that.
Okay. Exception for what?
Exception to allow,
I mean, if you're gonna say there's an exception then why even have a minimum then?
yeah, okay. Just a minimum.
So are we saying either for an older lot, picking a date to say anything that was developed at this date be a minimum of 1, and anything post this date?
Yeah, I think let's just go back to the original language, because it's the, because,
Yep.
yeah, because, you know, because one of the ideas is also try to simplify things, and
That
then you try to work in too many exemptions, as I think
that's
we can make it more,
complicates it a little more than.
yeah,
Yeah.
complicated.
But do we have a concern about these tiny home lots? Do we want to change that from 2? I think his concern is there enough space for 2 on those lots?
Well, if we're gonna have a tiny home, is there still probably would be space on those lots? Because they would still have the same minimum size unless 4 tiny homes. Something is passed within the zoning code to allow smaller lots.
So you don't see that as a problem?
No, I don't see that really as a problem right there. Yeah, because until the time comes and the zoning code does allow the tiny homes.
Yeah, and have we figured out what the size of the home is and versus the lot, and if there's enough space for 1 or 2 spots there? Because what you're saying is probably, and I think that if we're doing this, we either make the line in the sand that it's gonna be 2 or it can be 1. But I don't think I know the size requirement's enough to know whether there's enough space based upon the minimum size, lot size requirement for a tiny home, whether there's gonna be parking space for one
Yeah,
vehicles or two.
yeah. And that would be something is if something is finally adopted with the tiny homes, as far as then, as far as whether or not there'd be a change also in the minimum lot size for tiny homes. Because right now, if we have the minimum lot size in the city, it's it's 7,000 square feet if it's an interior lot, and then it's 8,000 square feet if it's a corner lot. And if it's a tiny home, which is typically, you look at ordinance of tiny homes, you're looking at 400, 800 square feet.
Right now, the minimum lot size in Fayette County is 7,000 square
Yep.
feet.
Exactly.
So 70 by 100,
Inside or outside?
40,
The
40,
city limits,
40 square
correct?
feet.
Both,
So
it's
I'd
correct,
leave it
same
at
for
two.
both.
You're gonna put.
And that's all
two.
dependent
Yeah.
upon,
Yeah.
of course, in
I mean, you're only
whether
talking
it's an
400
R1
square
or
feet
R2
of
or
the
R3
frontage
zoning
at
district.
the 700. So I would propose just leaving it at 2.
Okay, all right. No, oh. Okay. Okay.
And then on page 1 there, I guess the proposed amendments, wanting to take it from 180 square feet for a parking space to 200 square feet.
Yeah, well, it's changing from 200 square feet to 180 square feet
Yeah, that's not
because really the 200 square feet is reflecting the growth in the size of vehicles.
Yeah,
Because is the,
so Mr. Collins recommended the 180 square feet.
which is what it is, which I think is because it's at 200 square feet, is because your standard depth of a parking space
Yeah.
is with the parking space dimension, depth is, the standard is when you're figuring out parking is 20 feet in length. And then the other one, then if it's 10 feet, because then if you go with 8 feet, is you're probably, yeah,
Because right now, in the table, it shows a partial is 10 by 18.
Yeah.
A parallel is 9 by 20, and then the recommendations
Yeah.
are 10 by 20.
yeah. So. Yeah.
If you can recall, Bill, what was Mr. Collins's concerns about us not increasing that size?
I don't really recall right offhand,
Okay.
but I think I may have
You
had something.
remember, Brian?
Yeah.
I don't, well, he probably just because it was written that way in
Yeah.
Beginning.
the beginning, he's questioning.
I mean, I think we talked about some of the larger trucks, pickup trucks, and that was the reasoning,
I think probably all of our trucks sitting out front here
are
Longer
20,
than 8 feet.
20 or beyond, you know.
Yeah, because it's because,
Smaller if the windows or mirrors are gone.
Yeah. So
because now that I have a big truck that I drive for work, it's that.
Some of the size.
It just doesn't
SUVs
feel
and everything else like
comfortable
that makes it-
parking that in an 8-foot wide parking space.
Yeah. But I think we can really justify our reasoning for increasing
yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Don't you? I mean,
Just needs to be changed.
yeah.
Okay.
You could change it to adequate, and that goes aside what's adequate.
Yeah, you don't want to give that type of discretion.
No, because they may think the 6 foot wide one's adequate.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's called
There's some
democracy.
things you want discretion, some things you don't. Now, what I would need to, so, I'll take I'll take more of a look at those where it says option 1 and option 2. Because when you think about it is I think with the parallel 9 by 20, whereas when you're actually laying out on-street parking, you're actually looking, you measure them out at 24 feet to give for the room for the maneuvering. So, So total parking really, that should be 20 feet long.
Yeah, because the 90 degree, 60 degree, and 45 degree are already 10 by 20,
Yep, yep.
and partial and parallel are 10 by 18 or 9 by 20, so.
Yeah, I'd have to go back in there and figure out, I'm looking at that's like, what the heck does that partial mean? And unless it should have been actually parallel option 1, parallel option 2, which is suppose is probably what that was.
But what's that mean? What's, do you know what
What's-
option?
Okay, yeah, because that would be, okay, those would be the actual width and the depth of what you're gonna have on the street for your parallel parking.
So is there any reason not just to make everything 10 by 20?
Yeah.
Just not have to worry about it?
I'd say 10 by 20 and then parallel, make it at least a, well, your standard on the parallel is at least 24 feet. I want to go ahead and measure the, measure the downtown
Let's say,
Yeah, but
parallel spaces.
parallel parking requires more than that 20 feet.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, so like I said, the standard is when you're laying them out, you consider 24
So you
feet.
can get,
Yeah,
So
maneuver.
these numbers
But
are
the-
all silly.
Yeah, I need to,
yeah,
yeah,
because the existing table and the proposed table both, parallel shows 9 by 20, so if that needs to be changed, then.
yeah. Yep. Yeah, so. Base width on the reality of what exists, okay? Okay,
might be able to get that measurement from federal for
yeah.
manual.
Yeah, if you could go ahead and check on that. Yeah, because I have, it's buried someplace, but on a big book with design standards for infrastructure and so on. Okay. So, now, I guess while we're on this, does anybody have any questions or concerns about the, any of the numbers we have here on the, with the parking requirements? Because right here, we get down to right here for the dwelling units. For each dwelling unit on site is 2 spaces. Okay. And once
Are
again,
you asking as far as the amount of spaces?
yeah, exactly, the, what we're requiring for the spaces.
I've got a question about the recreational facility of sports. For every field or court at a sport or recreational facility, 20 spaces?
Yeah, for however much, okay,
What about like the schools?
yeah, it's the, okay, well, now what I did, now the one I actually went with that was the, on those spaces, is to get a feel for it was, I used the 20 spaces and then I measured out them with the spaces up there at the soccer complex, which is what it's really referring to, something like that. And,
See, I was thinking about the high school though.
well, the high school would be kind of a different story because it's actually the, with the school parking.
And you have to keep in mind, the grandfather is not a word you use, but grandfathered is a word we use. Like, it's not, there's not something technically grandfathered, but we're not going after the high school gymnasium and saying, there's not enough parking, so you can't do it.
Sure, I'm
What-
just asking.
What this is gearing
Yeah.
towards is if let's pretend the schools build a new gymnasium, which of course they wouldn't, but let's pretend they would, then they would have to have 20 parking spaces, which I think they would do in this day and age, right?
Yeah,
So, I mean, I see you're concerned, but it's not, this is more for,
Any new construction or
I mean,
reconstruction.
parking is gonna be for new construction. If somebody goes into a mini mall and wants to put a new business in the mini mall and they're not changing the building, Bill's not
No.
knocking on their door about their parking space. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Just like all the but if somebody puts in a new facility and they wanna do gymnastics and, things like that, it would have to comply with that.
Yep.
If they're gonna have team sports type thing.
yeah, because your question about the recreation facility is, that's one that, Counselor Collins had. So I specifically went out there, and then also I did the measurements using the GIS. And, it's the, and so looking at the number of the fields they had, so I checked with Mike Bottom with how many fields they had. and it had sufficient number of spaces. But they could probably, yeah, as far as between both the front side off the road, then also the back side on the north side of the soccer complex. there's
Even
also
the park
sufficient
also,
What's that?
even the park also.
When you mean Roberts Park? That's already in there because in any case with the because this is talking about, like I said, the fields and then the courts. So it really wouldn't affect, with Roberts Park, these numbers.
Court, okay.
Yeah, so it's field or court at a sports or recreation facility. So,
And there again, these are minimums, correct?
exactly.
Yeah.
You can always provide more. So of course, if you recall, one of the reasons with the conversations we had way back when we started discussing the parking was that particularly because we had multiple projects come through, the Dollar Generals and a couple others, that it's like, well, it's more parking than we really need. So and that's when I went through that exercise of going around town and then checking the parking for the different particular uses, as to whether it's sufficient or whether it's insufficient, with that one spreadsheet I put together. Yeah, that matrix. So that's where that came into play with it. So that affected some of the actual numbers right here.
And our goal was to help on stormwater.
Exactly, help with stormwater control and reduce cost of development. Because, parking's expensive. Parking's really expensive.
Yes, it is.
Yep. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions or concerns with any of the other numbers we have right here?
You're saying this is for new construction?
Yeah, it's gonna affect new construction and it's also redevelopment. Okay, for example, if there is say a redevelopment and, say, you have a car dealer, they build a new building, they replace a new building, they build a new building, well, then it falls under these numbers right here. Say-
Hey, we could do something, we could use some language, because that seems like a pretty common concern you guys are having. We could put some language in there, if this chart only is applicable to new construction.
New or reconstruction.
New construction or
Redevelop.
renovation, yeah.
Only
Redevelopment.
applicable,
But you don't want to, you gotta be careful, because you don't want to discourage somebody to remodel a mini mall, knowing that they're not gonna have the parking issues, right? Like, they're not in compliance now, but they wanna put $200,000 or $300,000 into a mini mall.
Yeah.
You don't wanna discourage that when that parking's worked the whole time. So
Well, they could also ask for a variance,
yeah.
right?
You can ask for
Yeah.
variance, correct?
Variance
Yeah, well,
or,
because-
as long as there's no change to the exterior of the facility or something like that.
Yeah, because you're not changing the
Square
the
footage of
footprint. Now, where we're talking about with the redevelopment, that would be, say, okay, for example, with Reed, they're completely redeveloping that property. So even if someone is then gonna take down and then redevelop
Yep.
say, under some type of commercial use, then the numbers would fall into play with that.
And then you
And
got,
they're still smaller numbers than they were previously.
and if you change the use of that building, if the building goes from being a dentist's office where you might have 5 customers to a preschool, that changes,
Yeah.
that changes this use, which does make this applicable, so.
Yeah.
So then you could ask for a variance, though.
Could, certainly.
Yep. Yeah, and that's one question or concern that zoning board members have had over time was that people keep having to come into the zoning board to get a variance because the parking requirements are excessive. So a lot of some of the numbers with the focus on this was also with the zoning board, so. Because the basic attitude or theory really is, if you keep doing a variance for the same thing over and over and over,
Maybe it
you need to
will
change it.
Right.
So,
It's kind of like the sign
yeah,
ordinance.
Yeah.
For years, we were sign after sign after sign, we were
Yeah.
asking for variances and
Sure.
finally realized that, hey, maybe the ordinance needs to be changed.
And then you throw in handicap spots to go with it.
Yeah.
Well, the handicap spots are always figured in, as they're not separate from the total number of parking
And they're,
spaces.
yeah, they're,
And because those are all driven by the ADA.
Yes, correct.
So,
can you still see what you need to see?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else have anything else?
On parking or anything else?
well, let's start with the parking first. If anyone has any more questions on this parking, the parking table.
Oh, the table itself, okay.
Yeah, let's try to get through with the table first.
We're gonna address the parking space sizes, aren't we?
Yep.
And then
Yeah. Because one of the things I really tried to also do with this is because the previous one is, there was no rationale between the actual list. It did everything alphabetical instead of similar uses. So that's one thing also with what we tried doing with this also.
Now, for daycares, is this for in-home daycares, or is this considered a business
Okay.
location?
It'd be for both, really. Yeah, because and because really, with the daycare of any type, the only time you really have anything is when parents are dropping off or picking kids up. And then if it's a home-based daycare, which is I think it's between 6 and 12, well, it's the class, I think that's the class 1 daycare. You don't need as many. So then above that is the class. I think but whichever it was is for the larger daycare. Those are the ones, and then it has more of a parking requirement for those, which would still really kind of work out the same depending upon the number of kids you have. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, you can see under the part here under the commercial use, and that's the one where, of course, is the differences in the restaurants, drive-ins, retail stores are based on the size of the spaces. And that's kind of a result of some of the things I did with my, going through my, my study on the properties. Now, for example, good example is that, okay, now what we have with the dental office, medical dental office, is that, well, it really wouldn't affect any of the dentists, but it would fall into play with the one that's gonna be built over there on 24th and Western. So that one right there. And I gave them the information of what was gonna be changed to, so they've taken that in consideration with their site design.
But that's not changing from the previous.
No, because I was just explaining because there's a little bit more of the detail work there because it's a little more fine tuned.
how do we how do we classify a restaurant, primarily drive-through or primarily sit-down?
Yeah. Okay. Well,
What was our thoughts there?
the basic one you're really seeing is the difference is really how many for every, it's for however many square feet. You're looking at the sit down, one for every 100 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see with the drive-through, since not as many people use those anymore, most people use the drive-through.
I think the answer
200
to your
square
question
feet.
is if it has a drive-through.
Yeah, so if it has the drive-through,
Then it's considered primarily drive-through.
yeah.
Regardless of how many seats they
They're
have.
not like, he's not like counting what their business is. It's, I think we could change that language to just say restaurant with a drive-through.
Or without. Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I'm, because it's obvious that Dunkin' Donuts is primarily drive-through.
But
Only
McDonald's or
drive-through.
Wendy's might not be as clear. Right.
Yeah,
But I think-
McDonald's has 20-some seats, so is that
I think it's,
you know,
I think it's the idea of
It's still a
if
drive-through.
it has a drive-through.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I,
Yeah, because you're still gonna have those numbers right there for, of course, with the employees, because that's the only people that park there. And it bugs the heck out of me that they don't have because I just wanna do a walk-up at the window.
mm-hmm,
And they never opened it up. Okay,
so we change that language to
with drive-through,
with drive-through or
Without
with
drive.
that, without.
yeah, I think that's a good suggestion with drive-through. Okay,
What did you come up with on the stacking of the drive-through? So,
okay, that is something I missed on including in this was the stacking. Okay, so I do need to add the stacking.
It's not included in this table.
No,
or it's
no,
not
because
included in the
we talked about it, but I forgot to go ahead and add it into this.
Okay.
Add stacking language for drive-through. Yeah. And I need to add it, and I'll add that to the table and to table. Okay. And, yeah, because I mean, we have a lot of conversations about that and
Yeah, we did.
yeah,
I don't recall having
yeah.
several conversations, several examples, but I don't know that we ever come up with a real solution.
No. Well, for example, I think it looks as though what they did at the new McDonald's, with what they rebuilt at McDonald's, seems to be having a positive effect. I mean, I know it gets backed up that way, but it isn't a regular basis where you have them into the street and then blocking the intersection.
No, it's not.
So, but a lot of that is just changing the axis of the building. Along with the 2 lanes they had. Okay. Oh, hey, Bev? Got a question for you up there, since is with the number of people up there at the mobile home park, because we have right here with the 2 spaces,
Every lot has 2 spaces.
yeah, every lot has, I mean, that's pretty much a standard anyway of the industry. So that seems to work, all right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they all do.
Okay, yeah, because when they're putting in the concrete aprons, they're all large enough for two vehicles.
And that doesn't count for the older mobile home parks, correct?
No, it's but,
Because some of them do not have
yeah.
2 spaces.
Yeah. Okay, so,
And you're increasing the multifamily dwellings from 2 to 2.5 for
Yeah.
each dwelling unit?
yeah.
What's the thought behind that?
Well, what it is because one time because for each dwelling unit, there's the spaces, the 2.5 spaces each, that takes in the possibility of both employees and then also visitors.
yeah.
I'm not following you.
Okay, well, you have
Yeah.
visitors and then you also have employees.
And in okay, this
Like
is
an
for,
apartment complex.
so this is more of an apartment complex, not a,
Complex, yeah.
Complex, yeah.
So what about a house that's a duplex? You're gonna have 2 for, you're gonna go from 2 on each side to 2.5 for each side?
I think it says up to 4, so if it, as your question is, if it's 5, if it's got 5,
Yeah.
single family and 2 family dwelling units, multifamily dwelling units up to 4 dwelling units.
It's 2 spaces,
Okay, so if it had 5 units, then
Or
it'd have to
more.
have
yeah,
2.5.
yeah.
And the idea behind that is that there's an office there.
Yeah, because typically there's an office in those.
Doesn't say how many units basically that requirement changes
Yeah.
to, so.
Yeah, I mean, because you could make it more complicated by then, basing it
Right.
on
You'd
so,
like
so many
you'd
per,
like multifamily dwellings
Yeah.
right there to say 5 for each,
Yeah.
for units with 5
or
dwellings or
more.
more.
To go to
You
two
seeing
and a
that?
half.
Oh, yeah, but under multi,
You could
Yeah.
kind of understand it by reading it too, but somebody could very easily argue that a duplex means you have to have 2.5. So just add right there, just
Units.
add.
for units with 5 units or
Five.
more.
for
Five
5 dwellings,
Go to
units
two
or
and a half,
more,
yeah.
Okay.
for each dwelling unit on a site for 5 units or more, yeah.
And then less than 5 would be 2, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, and the number that's chosen with the 4 is because that's where you have a lot of other extra requirements that start kicking in as far as fire codes and building codes with the 4 units and then more than 4 units. So a lot of time what you use as far as your units that you differentiate, you base on other things, say in state codes, the building codes, or the fire codes. So, you just use some of the things out there, basically the defaults, numbers. Okay. It's kind of silly of me doubling up on, okay. Yes. Okay.
Anybody see anything else on that table? Okay,
Okay.
where would everybody like to move to next?
Whatever section somebody has some questions or comments on.
Well, on 24 below the last bit of the table, it says replaced with letter F, parking plan submission review, but I don't find where letter F is.
Under bullet point 24.
Oh, actually,
And then
it should be
starts back to
E
one.
is what it should be.
Okay.
Where's E?
Should be with what?
Yeah, proposed amendment right here on page 14.
On page 14.
Yeah.
I say then where's E at? Because it stops at D.
Okay.
Here on this page.
Nah,
Under 2 or
Yeah.
3?
it's continued on.
Okay, so you have page 14 where it starts, it says proposed amendment at the top. Okay, and this is what then is being proposed to replace it.
That
Yeah,
large letter E.
yeah, you have the large letter E, yep.
Between there and there.
So I kept a lot of the same requirements in there,
The next section.
but did get in, was a little bit more in the way of some detail on it. But, okay, so I do need to go, okay, I'll rewrite and clarify okay, the plan review section. So. Okay. Yeah, because some of these are some of the things that I wanted to take care of prior to this, so. Yeah. But this is forcing me to look more closely at some of the things also, because I really haven't gone over this very closely for quite a while. And I'll add the stacking section on the, I'll add that to the end of the table.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yep. I got a, excuse me, a question going back to the bottom of page 2.
Yep, what you got?
Talking about the proposed amendment for 6 foot tall, 100% opaque wooden doors. And then we go on to the top of page 3, talking about associated with auto repair or salvage facilities as well.
Yep. Okay, all right,
So I guess that starts at the top of page 3.
yeah.
We talked about that for Parker Automotive, and once we sent it to city council, they required Parker Automotive to put an 8-foot fence.
Yeah, they requested an 8-foot fence instead.
Does there a variation have to be?
No, because that was done as part of that, so it didn't have to go through the variance process. It's just a condition that was added for the
So
approval.
was that an undue burden on him to put an 8-foot fence in versus a 6-foot fence?
Would be, it could potentially be a burden for someone. But
But 6 foot is our
Yeah.
standard.
yeah, because actually it fits in because.
Did he have to apply for a variance of something else?
No, well,
Or a
no,
special
you really
exception?
didn't, no, you really didn't have to do that because we actually, in the zoning code, it does permit for security fences to be 8 foot in height. So really what he's doing, it's basically,
So say that again?
it does allow security fences up to 8 feet in height.
But a security fence and a privacy fence are two different things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
are
did
we
he-
are we considering an auto repair or salvage yard to be a security fence or a privacy fence?
Yeah, well, some of them want to have security fences.
So I don't remember this one. How did this come up? Did this, he came to the board or not?
Yeah, well,
Just the-
he didn't come to the board because
Well, then who made the city council, he didn't go in front of the city council to make 8 foot, so how'd that happen?
that was a suggestion that was made by Councilor Collins.
Okay, but what,
So when he came in, remember we had the concern about the property line and putting a fence because that was the one we rezoned to general business?
yeah, so, okay, that's what now I'm
Yeah.
remembering. So that was a condition of the rezone.
Mm-hmm.
So you can put, so he did come before the board for something, he had to get something.
Yeah,
We made a
order.
favorable recommendation to change it from
yeah,
single
for the
family
rezone
dwelling
was a
to-
favorable
to-
recommendation.
Yes,
And they made a condition upon the rezone.
yes.
Yeah,
So that's what makes it deviate from this.
Yeah.
That was where I was trying to get to, and
Yeah.
that makes sense. If somebody comes to us for a variance or
Yeah.
something else, we can make additional conditions that may be more impactful than this, specific to that property.
Okay.
But that was asked for a privacy fence and not a security fence.
I'm,
I don't remember the wording as to how they worded it. I think it was a privacy fence to go to 8 foot, not a security fence, but that's why I asked the
It was
question.
to be
I'd like 'em all to
higher
be-
this- get it as high as you could get it.
I'd like them all to be considered a fence and just not have to play the game
A
of
fence?
it's
Yeah.
a security fence.
semantics. 6 foot.
Well, that's why I was asking, because it's worded in there.
So his question was,
One way.
if he didn't have to come to the board for the rezone, but he had to have a fence, let's just say hypothetically came in to do something and Bill said, oh, by the way, you've gotta have a fence. Yeah, he would have only had to have a 6-foot fence.
Well, when we look at the language right here, then on the top of page 3, all storage areas for properties associated with permitted auto repair salvage facilities, such vehicles shall be completely enclosed within a 6-foot tall, 100% opaque wood, stone, or masonry fence when adjacent to residentially used properties. Gates allowing access to the storage areas are permitted shall be closed when not in use and shall consist of a 6-foot tall, 100% opaque doors. So there's no reference really in that one as far as really a privacy fence or not.
Yeah, I would, if we're going to use this idea of a security fence, I think we should define what that means, and that should be specific to what that intent is, not just, we're guessing if it, this time if it's a privacy fence or it's a security
Yeah,
fence.
yeah, let's not play the semantics,
Yep.
but yeah, so just leave it as, the current language right there is,
Well, I'm not saying you need to do that, I'm just saying we need to probably clean up the area where it talks about
The definition of offense.
the definition of a fence. I mean, just add a definition for when you want it to be an 8-foot fence versus a 6-foot fence. I mean,
Or
I'll
is
just
it
be
the-
honest, in court, I'm gonna struggle with telling a judge what a security fence means, because
If it isn't
technically every,
mine.
I mean, your pool fence is a security fence to some
Exactly.
degree.
But because it says that it's adjacent to residential, does that make a difference?
That makes it, yeah, that describes that, right.
With a sign saying rattlesnakes inside. That'll do the job.
You're saying, wait a second, you're saying, where does it say adjacent to residential in this one?
no, it's the,
Oh,
on
well,
page
okay.
three, yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, well, this gets into one of the things I wanted to clean up, and there's some redundancies and
But
things like
is
this.
that saying when there's, but what that's telling me is when it's not adjacent to residential, then it doesn't have to have the fence.
And, yeah, that,
But,
yeah, that, yeah,
but we didn't, in my mind, a security fence is around the entire perimeter, and I don't believe we ever required an entire perimeter fence, so that wouldn't, in my mind, wouldn't be a security fence, it'd be a privacy fence. Yeah.
well, and again, because it's a problem, or, then I have a question, is, because this was added, this is potential language I added, what, the italicized part. Because previously to that, we didn't have that in that first one, on the bottom of page 2. So,
Well, I think here's how you've changed it, in my opinion.
yep,
It used to be that all storage areas for vehicles shall be enclosed with 6-foot tall, 100%
yeah,
fence.
that opens up
You've
problems.
changed it to where now it's only saying
Yeah, residential.
if it's attached to residential. So if
Yeah.
it's not attached to residential, they don't have to have any fencing to hide their
Yeah, I
vehicles.
can get rid of that.
But this says completely enclosed, so, I mean, are we opening ourselves up between, again, going back to completely enclosed as a security fence? So, whether that's privacy or security,
I mean, if I'm being honest, the original
Yeah.
seems cleaner and clearer to me.
Okay. Okay,
It's just essentially saying, now if you want to add some language to what a storage area for such vehicles means,
I mean, we say completely enclosed in the original wording as well.
oh, we do, that's right,
Yeah.
I see that.
yeah,
I thought that was added, you're right.
yeah.
Is that the entire property, or is that just
Yes, please.
the section with the
It
vehicles?
says all storage areas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't
That can
necessarily,
be argued.
That can be argued either way, that's why lawyers make a lot of money, but let's not, if we're seeing that. I mean, all vehicles stored on property, on those type of properties shall be enclosed, is probably what the intent is, right?
yeah. Mhm. Okay,
But, I mean, how many of these facilities are really abiding by this?
Think about some of the other automotive repair shops in town.
Jim's Body Shop, but you got the building on one side, so you're enclosed.
Yeah.
Golf,
I'm not
we
gonna,
got golf's over there.
yeah. I guess they do have a fencing
Takes up
around,
371.
around the backside of it, don't they?
Like the building encloses two sides of it.
But this is only for new
That was car lot
construction, so.
before.
Yeah.
be for the new
Well,
uses, yeah.
Parker Automotive wasn't new construction. It's been there since 1955 or 56.
But it's a new use.
Yeah.
It's a change of use, so. But,
Okay, I can buy that.
okay, so,
maybe you and I work, maybe you send me a paragraph that you think gets to what they want it to say. I mean, I think we're all kind of speaking the same language, but it's just not. And then shoot to me and I'll see if I can,
We gotta make it work in court.
yeah. I mean, the biggest thing is we want, it sounds like you guys want new use or new construction of this type of facility, auto repair or storage facility, or salvage facilities. You would like all vehicles on the property that are being worked on or stored essentially to be behind a fence.
New or renovated, Jeff, because somebody could decide to start a body repair shop and have a building there. I mean, he's gonna renovate it to do that. So renovation.
Yeah.
Well, that's change of use, I mean.
Change of use, yeah.
That could also add for, storage places too.
It is the purpose of the proposed amendment
Facility's already in there.
to just
Yeah, I know,
include
but
auto
it
repair
doesn't
salvage
Say
facilities?
anything about the,
Are we,
Yeah, well,
is that the,
yeah, because this particular part had to do with the
security fence
actual,
versus privacy fence.
okay, just go back in there. Parking.
So it's all under 5, like if you
Yeah.
start at 5.
Doesn't say anything
Vehicle
about
storage
security
requirements. The
fence.
storage of all motor vehicles shall be consistent with the following requirements. And then
I
it
don't
seems like
believe
at some point in time, we intentionally wanted to make that include
Unless I read
auto
it.
repair and
Auto
salvage
repair.
facilities.
Yeah, because that was, because that previously was also called out
That should be right
separately,
in here.
so.
So incorporate, like you started to do that, incorporate that in your amendment and
And
just,
that was a question, not a, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
I
because
was
B
asking
specifically
whether
calls out auto repair salvage
saying that it
facilities.
should be changed or adopted.
Like the
Right.
Pierce place at Louisville, that had the fence around it.
yeah, so you don't really even need to do that in the proposed amendment. He's correct, because
Yeah.
this caption's under B, so
B,
B's
B.
saying,
Yep. Okay.
you know your task?
Okay, so that right there is the,
Lost him.
okay. And B, send to Jeff.
We beat
B2.
that to death yet?
And I think, I mean, I think it's just changed
Just
to
clean
just
it
a
up.
little clean.
Yeah. No, well, that's why we do this and that's why
I mean,
we do, it should be also done publicly.
Really, it could say all vehicles shall, you could, I mean, I'm trying to think out here, so just to make it easy. If you got rid of storage areas for such, if you put all vehicles shall be completely enclosed with a 6 foot tall, that kind of gets
Yeah,
that.
yep.
You see what I'm saying? If you
Yeah.
just got rid of storage areas for such.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so delete then storage areas for such, correct?
And
Okay.
just put all vehicles shall be completely enclosed with 6 foot tall, because it's under the idea of auto repair storage facility shall be, so.
Yeah.
We'll get that to them and see if that reads the way they want it to and has the impact they want it to have.
Yeah. Is this getting, because a lot of this was getting into me trying to figure out then some of the ways to, speak to some of Dale's concerns.
Well, Commissioner Strong was very, he didn't want it to be more impactful parking. He wanted it to be a, this,
Yeah.
so. Not as restrictive. He didn't want a more restrictive ordinance to be passed.
Yeah, well, this is actually, yeah, which we really weren't doing, but which is generally what we were trying to do.
Because he was asking for this whole section to not be applicable, to only be within city limits.
Yeah.
Which we could add that if you wanted to.
But yeah, well, that's why I made the references in there to, with some of these parts with the parking of the vehicles, but is to, but out in the county is then include places such as the platted subdivisions and the places like Orange and so on, that really were more densely developed.
Well, I guess my concern would be, out in the county just as well. I mean, if you've got a dozen houses sitting side by side, and it's not a subdivision, those neighbors don't want to see that salvage yard or mechanic shop sitting there any more than here in the city. You know, to me, I think we ought to look out for them too, those folks. To a certain extent. I mean,
Yeah, not making it a free-for-all.
yeah. I mean, I understand some of this language in this ordinance that we talk about city, inside the city versus outside the city. It's due to crowdedness.
Yep.
Has to do with, the language has to do with the crowdedness of multiple recreational vehicles and so on and so forth sitting at somebody's house. It's a lot easier to spread them out on a 5-acre lot or a 3-acre lot out in the county than it is
Yeah.
a half-acre lot here in town.
Yep.
So I understand that, but as far as when we're talking about commercial
Yeah.
properties,
Yeah, because there really isn't much out there, really out in the county, as far as commercially done like this.
no, not too
But
often, but there are some.
There are some, and they're pre-existing uses such as, what used to be Gary Gangs out there,
Mm-hmm.
Everton Road.
Everton. I think, I know we're not talking, I mean, I think vehicles, I don't know if we are talking about equipment, farm equipment or construction equipment as well when we're talking about vehicles, or is it just primarily cars and pickups
Yeah,
and shops?
cars, recreation vehicles, and things like that.
You know, because we have some ag and some commercial, or some construction shops as well that's scattered around.
I think one of the first things I really need to do with this is to make it easier also is to, I really need to get rid of, go back through this thing and really, because this right here was trying to take into consideration with the, what was initially proposed, then the proposed amendments to the proposed amendment were some of the same things right here, which is one of the things that makes this more difficult to really try to figure out what's going on in it.
I was gonna say, because we have a version that was passed by the APC,
Yeah.
correct?
Correct. And so the,
So maybe we
Every
ought to
single-
be looking at the
yeah,
version that was passed by this board with the proposed changes from the commissioners and the city council.
Yeah.
That'd be a good idea.
Because I got confused.
yeah, no, that's understandable because, like I said, this is one of the things I wanted to clean up
Yeah.
before we had this meeting.
Yes, and wasn't able to, but. So I think we're really gonna have to,
Yeah,
I mean, we've answered some questions tonight, but
yeah, but I think some of it is really, some of the things are really, you know, just like those things that are highlighted right there, is that I just really need to sit back and then just, you know, with all those particular items right there, once I, because there's a lot of redundant things in here also.
yeah. So is there anything else that anybody else jumped out at him, right? Until he can kind of redo it?
Also on the bottom of page 12 there, Bill, when you're talking about off-street parking, going to F, you have subsection F on
Yeah,
number 5 there as well, at the bottom of the page.
yeah,
You should go to E.
yeah, so the,
Yeah, there's that under 24 there, bullet point 24 where we changed it, but then there's also down here on the bottom right hand of the page.
yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I see. He's referring to.
yeah. Okay, so. Okay. So I have some things, specific changes to make, and then it's clean the things up for you guys so that it's easier to read and really understand it and go over it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's
I
the,
think that'll help you.
Yes,
Roger.
absolutely.
yeah, no, it's the, but I think this will give us a chance to get something that's a, an improvement over what was actually with, some of the things we're thinking about with the, what was originally recommended by the Plan Commission.
Okay. All right, we'll move on. You don't have anything on number 3, do you, Bill?
No, that's the,
All right, we'll move on to Director's Report. Are there any questions or comments for Bill on it? Looks like our total building permits have continued to climb
yep. Yeah,
for
we've
this
already,
year.
and we've already passed, today, and I have, I think, 5 more to catch up on the building permits. And we're up to 163 as of today. So we're,
For the year.
yeah, for the year, so we're significantly up. And if we look right there, as far as when we're looking at the, it's finally showing up, the estimated total construction cost. And then those electronic payments, is that the, well, actually, is a check. The payments is, when you look at the, within June, that $27,000, that was the one from Reed for the actual structure itself, not just the foundation release. Which is why then it's basically pretty much double the actual total estimated construction cost. From about, yeah, so it's just about doubled it. It's a big project, and I mean, just the foundation stuff is keeping me really busy. And I'm going up there each day. And once we start getting actually into the structure itself, my visits and the time I start spending up there are actually gonna be longer visits.
That's one of the cleanest construction sites I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'm impressed with the way the Shook Scansa is doing with that
I
site.
peeked through the fence the other day and it's very clean.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, because in the north part of the building, they've completed and they've done 2 of the floor pours. So there's one part of the building which is to the south wing. Okay, they still need to do some of the plumbing and then one more electrical room. And, yes, and isn't as much in the way of the actual plumbing because, those are the offices down, some of the clinics are down that way, so they don't need as much as they have as far as all of the offices go. I mean, as far as all the water and the sanitary. But you probably noticed there's an awful lot of PVC sticking up out of the ground.
Sure is. I noticed this week that Herdrick has got their footer poured and
Yep.
laying block today, so
Yep.
that's good sign.
Who's that?
Herdrick's
Oh,
Average shell.
Shell.
yeah, Shell, yeah.
Yeah, I had someone who was, complaining to me, thought they're pulling a fast one. It was like, no, they've done everything they're supposed to. They've already given me the first elevation certificate. Now then, once they get the actual floors poured, there's another elevation certificate. They designed it then to meet the Indiana flood protection grade. So they did, yes, it's in the floodway fringe. So they are actually allowed to build there without going through the floodway permit through the DNR and then also the Corps. So I've got that information. So they with the site, then I also had to explain that because the other thing they did was that it really, the thing that probably took the longest time was then getting them to work through and then provide what the utilities consultants needed. Yeah, because I think about I think a couple of times they still needed more information. But it went through a process to where first the erosion control and then also the stormwater control, and all that's been approved. So they could, because until that was done, I wasn't gonna be able to issue a permit. Okay, I think the dentist is moving forward and it's getting close to, finishing up with the design release for up there with, the Kroger Fuel Center.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's starting to take shape too.
Yeah, because the other day, they had someone working on the perimeter landscaping crew putting up the actual, the erosion fence. So
I
that's
saw
going
that,
up.
so
So
that's good.
so they're getting close to that.
Any other questions for Bill on the report? I'll entertain a motion to approve. Second. That's motion made and seconded for approval of this month's director's report. Any other questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Okay, and the budget hearing is, I'm at 8 AM on the 13th for the budget hearing, so. Okay. So we don't have the free-for-all. It's nice with what Jane does based on past preferences, is that, we no longer have that free-for-all where, what time do you want to see in front of the council? So I told Jane a few years ago, I said, I got so many things to do, is that I'd really appreciate the, first person on the first day. And so since then, I've been the first one for the budget hearing.
And what day did you say?
It's on the 13th. That is correct, right, Bob?
Of
I
August?
think so.
Yeah.
At
9 AM. excuse me.
9.
Oh, I said 8 AM.
Okay.
So,
Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded for adjournment. Any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.